But is it a money problem or a moral problem that got you where you are? And it's not the only place. This is the sad truth of it. We are in the midst of a time when the politicians are again building up their power, making promises that they know can only be kept by destroying and bankrupting the future and hope of our country. Some people will say that that's some kind of money difficulty. I think the idea that you are willing to steal your present good from the future is theft, and theft is immoral, and the root of that problem is an irresponsible lack of conscience with respect to our posterity. But I'm not surprised that we're dealing with a situation where we've got some of these Republican leaders and so-called conservative leaders don't want to talk about the things that really matter, want to lie about the nature of the issues we confront, want to take our attention away from their own failures to bridle and rein in their inordinate ambition for power. They don't want us thinking about that. I understand why. So people have been reacting, and when I came here back in April of 2009, that reaction was welling up. And we are now pretty much coming to the eve of an election in which something that I predicted is going to happen. I hope it is. Anyway, it looks like it is. When people were approaching me back in the election of 2008 and telling me that I had no choice but to vote for John McCain, I was kind of telling them that I kind of had assessed the situation, and I found that on every issue I cared about, John McCain had betrayed me not once but several times, and that therefore the choice between that crypto version of a socialist surrender of our sovereignty and the open, unmasked version that Barack Obama represents was no choice at all. And I refuse to make that choice that way. And now we're supposed to believe, since they've been watching people rise up around the country, they keep trying to tell us they're in control of the Tea Party. Do you think that the party system controls you? No! Because I think it's about time we sent the message. We should send it to the Democrats. We should send it to the Republicans. We should send it to the leaders in the Congress and the House and the Senate. We should send it to the legislators. This is not a country in which the parties control the people. It's a country in which the people are still determined to control the government. So I told them that I wasn't going to vote. My favorite way of putting that was, I wasn't going to vote for Satan with his mask off. And I wasn't going to vote for Beelzebub with his mask on. In many different ways, they're still trying to offer us the same choice. We can worship government or we can worship mammon. We are forbidden to worship God. But I will go with Washington, and I will go with Lincoln, and I will go with every president and every generation that fought through the wars, that expanded the horizons of justice. When Martin Luther King stood before this nation's conscience to expand the horizons of justice, he did not do it in the name of government. He did not do it in the name of party. He did it in the name of the Almighty Creator God. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about a situation in which time and again we have elections in which we have no good choice for America? Is that an accident? Every time we have an election, the Democrats will stand up if they're Republicans that are in charge, and they'll say, the reason you don't have a good choice is because of nasty bad old Republicans. Vote for us. And then the Democrats came in 2006 and 2008. We started running over the cliff of policies that have been implemented in socialist countries around the world, and those policies have every single time in every single country resulted in failure and bankruptcy and the destruction of hope. And they stand up now. They stand up, and now the Republicans are coming to our rescue. We'll rescue you from the nasty bad old Democrats. We're here to... You know what I think? I think that on next Tuesday, it is my sincere hope that people will go into the voting booth and in every way consistent with their conscience, they will cast a vote that drives the Democrats out of power in every way, at every level. But don't get me wrong. As you vote for the Democrats to kick them out, don't trust the Republicans that you're letting in. They have betrayed you, and they will betray you again. You can see it in the way that they are treating the candidates being lifted up by the aspiration and hope of the people all around this country. They are doing everything in their power to abuse them and criticize them, to tear down what they represent and who they are, so that they will not get to Washington with the influence needed to get a job done. Are people who are really responding to the heart and hope of the American people to restore our Constitution, to restore our liberty, to restore our faith, to restore our conscience. Are they really going to be served by those who are fighting tooth and nail to discredit the folks they have lifted up by their very arms into prominence in our political life? If the Republicans were committed to the agenda of the grassroots, they would not be seeking to destroy the candidates that we have lifted up. So I say it again. Vote the Dems out, but don't trust the Republicans. But Alan, wait up. What choice do we have? We just have the two-party system. We got to go with the one or the... What is the matter with us? Let me see here. I'll go back and I'll read the Gettysburg Address again. It was mentioned earlier, I think. And when Lincoln was talking about our form of government, I know, he said, government of the Democrats by the Republicans for the partisans. Is that what he said? No. I don't find any mention in the Gettysburg Address of these parties. And I frankly don't think that parties of any description whatsoever are going to save this country. Washington, George Washington, founder of our country, father of our country at the founding rather, he didn't believe it either. Matter of fact, in his farewell address, he issued a long and principled warning against parties and factional sentiments. He said that if you dedicate yourselves to these parties, associations of individuals, they will work in their own selfish interests to attain power for themselves and their cronies and their friends. And then when they have gotten the seats of power, they will try to refashion the system so that no one can challenge them, no one can replace them, no one can do anything but work with them. Does that sound familiar to you? Yes. It may have taken us over 200 years, but I want to say with respect to the father of our country, he knew darn well what he was talking about, because we're living it now. When the smoke clears on November 2nd, I believe that the work of folks like yourselves, the work of people who are not partisans, not parties, but whose only claim to fame is that we are people willing to stand up and remember that in every state, in every part of the nation, of every color, of every creed, in every way, we are still Americans, and we will stand together on the solid ground of our creed. And I hope when the smoke clears on November 2nd, That will be the start, not of a time when we sit back on our haunches and expect the Republicans to save the country for us, because we know where that goes. Because the job is just beginning on the 2nd. The job is just beginning. Even if what appears to be going on doesn't succeed, and the Pelosi's and the Reids and the other corrupt Democrats don't succeed in stealing the election with their cheating. Now, don't get me wrong. See, I always have to understand, because I am coming out of an experience that forbids me to believe that I should leave you with the impression that I'm going to beat up on the Democrats because they're the nasty cheaters. They steal elections. They don't count the votes properly and so forth. When I went through Republican primaries, and guess what I found? That they're the nasty cheaters. They don't count the votes. They don't do this. They don't. Everybody's against cheating except when they're doing it, apparently. I think it's time we recognize that parties that are willing to agree that it's okay when they do it need to be left to the curb for a while we figure out what can really help to restore government of, by, and for the people to its proper fundamental place as the keystone of our political system. I have told people off in the last few days, I think that right now, and on the 2nd, if we do see a clear message to the Democrats, please get your communist socialism, national socialism, other forms of socialism out of our face. I think that if we send that clear message, the work's just beginning. We're going to be, as the American people, in a position that's a little bit like someone who's married to a spouse that abuses them, that regularly gets drunk, beats them to a pulp, and then the next day starts over again. That promises it'll never happen again, I'm going to do this or that, then betrays all the promises, beats them again. Okay? And you see that tendency going on. And then one night, the spouse wakes up, and some local rapist who's been terrorizing the neighborhood has found a way into the boudoir and is proceeding to violate her virtue and possibly kill her. And the tussle wakes up her husband downstairs, and he comes rushing up, and he pulls the rapist off of her, gives him a couple of smacks, knocks him unconscious. Now, I am sure that in that moment, as the abusive spouse comes to the rescue, that lady's going to breathe a sigh of relief, and for a minute there she'll say, thank him for getting that rapist off of her and preventing her death. But you and I both know that she hasn't solved her problem. That's the American people. Come election day on November 2nd. We will have warded off the death blow aimed at our liberty by the Democrats, but we will not have solved the problem of Republicans who mean slowly to poison our liberty to death. And we're going to have to decide how we handle it. And I think one very simple foundation is clear. We need to stop acting like there is no salvation for America outside the party system, because there's no salvation for America inside that system, and we've proven it long enough. And people can say, well, Alan, you want another party, you want a new party, you want another party, and I'm thinking, maybe George Washington had a point. Maybe it's time to say no to parties and yes to America. Maybe it's time to say no to partisanship and yes to righteousness. Maybe it's time to say no to electoral victories and yes to victories for truth and for principle and for the integrity that made our nation free. Now this is going to require a deep change of thinking in the way we approach politics. And it's going to require change in the questions we ask ourselves and others.